Before we can start building our custom field, we need a sandbox Drupal site to work with and an understanding of what it is we're trying to create. In this lesson, we'll preview the final product of the module we'll be building throughout this series in order to give you an idea of what our goals are and what you can expect to learn. Then, we'll walk through the prerequisites, such as having a Drupal 7 site up and running and some basic code that we can build upon. If you're already familiar with Drupal module development, this lesson can likely be skipped. Just make sure you grab a copy of the code attached to this page, since we'll use that as a starting point for the next lesson. If you're new to Drupal module development, you can brush up on the basics with our Drupal 7 module development series. Specifically, you'll need to know how the form API and render arrays work in order to get the most out of this series. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to describe the module that we're going to be building in this series and have a sandbox set up for learning to write code for the Drupal 7 Field API. We'll start by taking a look at the finished product of the module that we're going to be creating. We're going to create a new module called RGB, and the RGB module is going to provide a custom field type that allows a user to input an RGB hex color like 000000 for black, and a label to go along with that color. I'll demonstrate this by adding the completed RGB field to the article content type. If I click on the Structure tab, and then Content Types, and then I click Manage Fields for our article content type. Under Add a New Field, I'm going to add a field named Color here, and I'm going to choose the Color field type. Note that this isn't one of the Drupal core provided field types. This is the one that we're going to be defining in this series. It has one widget, text field, so I can save that. Just walk through the process of saving this field. I'll save the field settings. Under the field instance settings here, you'll notice that there's the standard required field, help text, and then there's this extra alternate label text. We will learn how to add our own custom settings to the field widget creation form. So we might add a label like color name instead of the default. Then we'll scroll down, we'll leave the number of values at 1, save settings. We'll drag our field up to the top just so that it's easier to find again. Click save. Now when I click on the add content link and then select article, I can create a new article with our color field here. So you'll see I can give our article a title, example article, and I can enter in any color I want. So, and a label for the color. What you're seeing here is the custom field widget that we've created. A single color field added to our article content type, but there's actually two inputs here. That's because our widget is going to add two text fields and store two values. So I can add that information. When I click save, and I view the newly created article, you'll see the label for the field that we added and just the raw color value. That's not all that interesting, so we're also going to add a custom formatter. If I go to the Structure tab once more, and then click on Content Types, and then I click on Manage Display for the article content type, I can change the format or the formatter here for our color field. Right now it's set to raw color value, but we've got a second one, color block with label. And when I choose that, you can see that it's got some additional display settings. So we'll be learning about how to add a custom formatter, and then we'll add a second custom formatter with some advanced display settings. This one allows us to set the dimensions of the color block that's going to be displayed. I might set this to something like 240 by 120. Update, save. I'll close the overlay. And now when I view our example article again, you can see there's a different formatter being applied, and it's displaying a block using the color that we defined with the label orange in the middle of the block. We're going to learn about combining all of the field type, field widget, and field formatter hooks in order to create this custom RGB field. There's a couple of things that we need to set up before we can start writing some code. If you're already familiar with Drupal and you've been through the installation process before, you can probably skip ahead at this point. But you're going to need a vanilla Drupal installation or a Drupal install that you can work with. as well as a skeleton module. That's just the info file and the module file that we can start adding code to. I've already got a vanilla Drupal install here. This is just pure Drupal 7 with nothing else. In addition to having Drupal 7 installed, I would recommend downloading and installing the Devel module. So if I click on the Modules tab, you'll see that I've already got the Devel module installed for my site. I would download that and enable it. The reason for that is the Devel module provides some helper functions like the DPM function, which we will use in order to inspect some of the various variables inside of our field API hooks. So once you've got Drupal installed and the Devel module downloaded and enabled, there's just one more step. We need to create a skeleton module. I'm going to switch over to my text editor, and I'm going to go ahead and start creating our custom module. So inside of my Drupal sites, all modules directory, in the custom directory, since this is a custom module, I'm going to create a new directory, and I'm going to name that directory RGB, which is going to be the name of our module as well. And then in the RGB directory, I'm going to create two new files. One of them is the rgb.info file, and the other will be our rgb.module file. The .module file can just have a simple PHP opening tag at the top. That's all we need for now. We'll be adding hooks to this later on. And the .info file will just be a standard Drupal 7.info file. So we can go ahead and fill this out. We're going to name our module. We'll name it RGB color field. We need to give it a description like so. So we'll give it a description of provides a field API RGB color field that collects color information and displays swatches. That's exactly what it's going to do. We need to tell it, our module, which version of Drupal core it's compatible with. And we need to claim a dependency on the field module. Because without the field module enabled, none of the field API hooks will be triggered. In our module, it would still exist, wouldn't do anything without the field API module being enabled. So we require people to enable the field API module as well, whenever they want to enable our RGB color module. That's it. With those two things, I should be able to switch back over to my site. And on my site, on the modules page, I can hit refresh. And if I scroll down the list of modules, just locate our new RGB color field module and enable it. It's not going to do anything yet, but it does provide us a skeleton in which we can start adding our custom hooks in the next lesson.